Stan, gentlemen, it is good to have you this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Maria.
So, Michael Waltz, let me kick it off with you as a Green Beret 20 years later after September 11th. How do you assess the situation right now?
You know, Maria, I spent 9/11 with a bunch of Green Berets, first responders, FDNY at Ground Zero. And, you know, of course, we were reflecting on so much sacrifice and the loss that we endured as a country. But instead of just being able to focus on that, there was this cloud over everyone, because we know now that at some point we are on a path for another 9/11, that the Biden administration, through this reckless withdrawal, through taking out all troops, all diplomats, all of our intelligence capabilities, and right now leaving Americans behind, that a next generation is going to have to go back to deal with it. We are on a road to future attacks. The same team that's around Biden was around Obama that yanked us out of Iraq and led to the rise of the ISIS caliphate. I think you're going to see that in the next year. With Al-Qaeda 3.0, partnered with Haqqani and the Taliban, except this time, when the next generation has to go back to deal with it, they're going to have no bases. We've given them away. No local allies. They're being massacred by the Taliban right now as we speak. And we're going to have to deal with an army's worth of American equipment that the Taliban now have. It's just heartbreaking and infuriating.
So disturbing. And Michael McCaul, we want to show this video that I know came from your office. This is video of the Taliban looking through some of the things that were left behind, like the weapons, $86 billion worth of armament, as well as cash. I want to get your take on what this cash is that they're looking at. Did we pay the Taliban for something? Why are there all these pellets of cash along with all of these guns and armament that the U.S. left behind with the cut and run out of Afghanistan?
Well, it's a cache of weapons that were left behind to the Afghan army, along with pallets of cash. The intelligence community got this one right. They predicted the downfall very rapidly of the Afghan army, that the Taliban would take over. And the idea that this was left behind, along with our American citizens and interpreters, is unconscionable. And now, as Mike said, they have they're the most heavily armed terrorist organization in the world now, along with these pallets of cash that you're looking at. And the sad thing is, courtesy of Uncle Sam. I mean, this is what infuriates me. There was no plan from the beginning, and all this was left behind for the Taliban. And what infuriates me even more, the American citizens left behind, the interpreters who fought with our special forces left behind. They're being executed as I speak right now. And then finally, no plan for an intelligence ISR capability in the region. We are dark in Afghanistan, and we're also dark when it comes to Russia, China, and Iran.
Well, this is a really important point that you're making, Congressman McCaul, and I want to show this map of the Bagram Air Base, because we know, and we've pointed this out in this program, the distance between this air base and China is so small, miles, yards, and that is the distance between the air base and, for example, the Xinjiang province, where the CCP is enslaving the Uyghur minorities, as well as just a few hundred miles away from the nuclear facility where China is expanding its nuclear armament and facilities there. So, Michael McCaul, tell us about the Bagram Air Base and this monumental mistake of going dark, because I think there is also breaking news that you're going to share with us about Putin pressuring Biden to close that air base. I would not be surprised if Xi Jinping said, get this air base out of here so that America would not have eyes and ears in this part of the world. Your thoughts?
Well, the reason why it's so important is because it's a national security asset for the United States, or it was, until the Taliban took it over. This provided eyes and ears not only in Afghanistan, but Russia, China, and Iran, our adversaries. They are now emboldened. We can't see. We are going dark now, and that's very dangerous. The administration talks about over-the-horizon capability. This is like 6-8 hours away in Qatar, UAE. Bagram, the loss of Bagram, I can't emphasize how destructive this is. And Maria, I'm getting reports now that the Chinese, as they met with the Taliban in late July, are negotiating not only for the rare earth minerals, but also they want access to that base. The idea that China is going to get access to Bagram Air Base, and then finally, to your point, reporting that Putin, the president of Russia, dictating to the president of the United States as to where he can build intelligence capability in the region, basically threatening him that he could not build that in what's called the stands, the region around Afghanistan.
Yeah. Michael Waltz, your thoughts on this? We talked a couple of weeks ago when you joined me about the importance of the Bagram Air Base. Tell me about the ramifications long term. What a black eye if the CCP will be moving into Bagram Air Base. And I'm going to have Oliver North coming up in a few minutes. He's going to talk about the technology at that base. He said that there are more sensors there than in the whole island of Manhattan. Your thoughts?
Well, Colonel North is absolutely right. It was the epicenter of our efforts there the last 20 years. Every soldier that came in or left flowed through Bagram Air Base. But we had important intelligence capabilities and sensors that could see in the region. I wrote an op-ed and sent a letter to the Biden administration and asked Secretary of Defense Austin directly during a hearing months ago why we would give away the only base in the world that we have that physically borders China in its back door, but also sandwiched between Russia and Iran. It's a 12,000-foot runway there, Maria. If you want to get Beijing's attention, if things start going south in Taiwan or in South China Sea, put a stealth bomber at Bagram and their back door, which is just a few hundred miles away from their new ballistic missile fields. As you mentioned, the Uyghurs, which the only thing Beijing cares about the most is an uprising from its own people, but also from things like its major semiconductor factories and other critical infrastructure that we could have held at risk and even had eyes and ears into from that base. But there's another critical piece, too, and that's India, which is, I think, is one of our most critical strategic alliances in the 21st century, the world's largest democracy, and very, very concerned about the CCP. Well, guess what? China now has a new ally against India with this axis from China to Pakistan to the Taliban. So we've left our allies high and dry. We are blind in the region. There's not a single country in the region, as Representative McCaul mentioned, that have agreed to allow our counterterrorism forces to base around Afghanistan. So we are in a horrible position, and it's all of our own making. This is a Biden's own making, and it's a strategic blunder of historic proportions.
Congressman McCaul, you will be questioning Anthony Blinken tomorrow morning when he testifies in front of your committee. Can you tell us a bit about what you'd like to hear from him?
Yeah, I want to hear from him. Why did this go so bad? How did he get it so wrong? Why didn't he listen to the intelligence community warnings since April and May of this last year, telling me that the Taliban was going to take over, the Afghan army was going to fall, and the embassy would be in trouble. Instead, they listened to, Zal Khalilzad, the special envoy, this rosy dream that they were going to somehow negotiate a last-minute deal with the Taliban. Was absolutely fantasy world. And not, it was like a Yale faculty lounge rather than, a war on the ground. I want to know why he left American citizens behind. Why did the military evacuate before American citizens? I want to know why our interpreters who put their lives on the lines and fought with our special forces, why were they left behind? And as Mike Waltz said, are being executed as I speak in front of their families. And then finally, I want to know why are we not building this ISR capability? What happened there? Yeah, I had an op-ed with Ambassador Crocker, New York Times, in May, warning the administration that if you're gonna not leave a light footprint, if you're not going to leave a residual force, then at least start evacuating American citizens, the interpreters, and establish this intelligence capability. They failed on all three counts. And now we're in a far more dangerous situation.
So, and just to be clear for our audience who may not know, ISR, Intelligence Strategic Reconnaissance, is that right? ISR, and that means that we have none of it. We don't have any more intelligence. We don't have any more reconnaissance abilities, given the fact that we've closed down Bagram. And so now, as you said earlier, we are dark. Michael Waltz, your thoughts on that and the fact that now Afghanistan has started a new government. And I want to run a soundbite of the Taliban when they were asked about women. How come there's no women in government? Watch this. You tweeted it.
ضرور نیست که در کابینه زن باشه. من اینقدر برات میگم. یعنی ضرور است که زن داشته باشیم ما در کابینه.
چرا ضرور نیست آقای؟
چی ضرورت داره؟ تو ضرورتش بر من بگو.
خب زن نصف پیکر جامعه نیست مگه؟
ولی ما خود نصفش ندانستیم اونا را.
Aren't women half of the society? Well, we don't consider them half. Please assess for us, Michael Waltz, the new government in Afghanistan.
Well, when is the administration going to let go of this fiction of hoping that we have an inclusive, diverse government coming from the Taliban? Right? I mean, when are they going to let this go? And Biden and Blinken keep saying, well, we're going to judge by their actions. Well, let's look at their actions. Let's look at the beatings and killings of journalists who are covering protests of women that have been told you can't go to work, you can't go to university. That Taliban spokesman, when asked why aren't we seeing any women as ministers, he basically said they can't handle it and need to stay at home and have babies. That's literally what the Taliban spokesman said. So here we have the Democrats that are the defenders of minorities and women's rights, and yet they're silent and they're engaging with a terrorist regime. Oh, by the way, now the head of the police and their border enforcement and deciding who can come and go is a terrorist by the name of Siraj Haqqani on the FBI's most wanted list that I've personally tried to kill on multiple occasions. It's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of Americans and is holding an American hostage right now as we speak, Navy veteran Mark Frericks. That's who the Biden administration is engaging. And meanwhile, our allies that still want to fight and still want to stand with us are suffering a genocide in the Panjshir Valley. The Taliban are literally pulling out young boys and killing them so that no future generation can ever resist their rule. And they're all partnered with al-Qaeda. And al-Qaeda is going to come roaring back. The intelligence is on that is very clear.
So disturbing. Michael McCaul, last word from you, because I did want to get some breaking news in on the origins of COVID. You did a great job with your reporting on all the circumstantial evidence, but tell me what else you have here. We know that China wants the $1 trillion in rare earth minerals in Afghanistan. They want to get in there, but there's also news that they will not acknowledge the origins of COVID. What did you learn in terms of the grant applications that you were telling me about this weekend?
Well, this new information has come out through a FOIA request. The grant applications that went to the NIH basically indicated it was for gain-of-function research, which is genetic modification. This was not a naturally occurring virus, Maria. This was a man-made, genetically modified virus. And the grant applications that I was denied access to that we got through a FOIA request now actually prove that what was going on at that lab was gain of function. And the worst thing, Maria, is that it was done through EcoHealth. Peter Daszak got $3.1 million from the NIH, $600,000 going to the Wuhan lab, and our intelligence community didn't even talk about it in their report.
And then we have to ask the question, was it an accident or not, given all of these revelations? Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your work. We so appreciate it.